I didn't expect this to work. By day 3, I was already thinking about quitting. Not because it was hard in the way I imagined, but because it was uncomfortable in a way I didn't expect. That was the day something hit me that I couldn't ignore anymore. I couldn't clearly remember what I'd spent money on the week before. Not properly, just fragments. A coffee here, something random there. Nothing solid. Nothing I could point to and say, yes, that was worth it. It felt like my money had been moving. Without me. And right there, standing in my kitchen, I heard Gran Betty like she was behind me. Easy spending makes hard living, dear. So I did something that felt almost ridiculous in 2026. I deleted every payment app I had. No backups, no, just in case. Just me, my account, and one decision. I withdrew everything, every pound, every pence of my monthly allowance. And when the notes hit my hand, I paused. Because no one tells you this part. Money feels different when it's real. Heavier, slower, more serious. That night, I sat at my kitchen table the way Gran Betty used to. Quiet. No distractions. Just me, the money, and a stack of envelopes. I could almost see Gran Betty across from me. Gran Betty always said, money needs a home or it wanders off. So I gave it one. I labeled each envelope carefully. Weekly food. Offline essentials. And one that made me smile. Tech-free fun. Gran Betty used to call that one joy money. If you don't plan for joy, Gran Betty would say, you'll spend on regret. I started dividing everything out. £60 and 50p into one. Smaller stacks into others. Slowly. Intentionally. And something shifted in that moment. For the first time in a long time. I wasn't just spending money. I was aware of it. But week 1 was resistance. Everything felt awkward, slower, slightly inconvenient. And this is the part most people never get past. Because it doesn't feel natural. We've been trained for speed, tap, scan, done. And suddenly, I was counting coins like it mattered. I nearly gave up on day 4. It was late. I was tired. And I reached for my phone without thinking. That feeling, I deserve something small. Except this time, there was no app waiting for me. So I walked over to my envelope instead. I opened it. And I just stood there. Because now, I could actually see what that decision would cost me. And that's when I heard Gran Betty again. Don't spend tomorrow's piece for tonight's impulse. I closed the envelope. I didn't buy it. And that moment, that pause, that's when everything started to change. Because that's the real system, not cash. The pause. Gran Betty always said, a pause is where your power lives. I call it the pause rule. If you have to physically take the money out, you give yourself just enough time to think differently. And most of the time, that's all it takes. Let me ask you something. How many things have you bought this week that you wouldn't have bought if you had to hand over actual cash? Just think about that for a second. Now, I wish I could say I got it right from the start. I didn't. In fact, I made a mistake in week 1 that cost me. I underestimated my food budget. By day 5, my weekly food envelope was nearly empty. And I remember standing in a shop, holding something I actually needed, and realizing I didn't have enough in that envelope. So I had to put something back, and walk out with less than I wanted. That moment stayed with me. Not because it felt bad, but because it felt honest. Gran Betty always said, a mistake is tuition, dear, only wasted if you don't learn. So I didn't ignore it. I adjusted. Week 2. That's when things shifted. Week 2 was awareness. I started noticing things I had never seen before. How often I opened apps just to scroll. How often I nearly bought things out of boredom. How often small spending wasn't small at all. And the biggest one, subscriptions. Quiet, automatic, invisible. But when I really thought about them, it added up fast. Gran Betty always said, if it's easy to start, it's hard to stop. So I started asking better questions. Do I use this? Do I need this? Would I hand over cash for this? If the answer was no, it didn't stay. Gran Betty also used to say, if you wouldn't hand it over in notes, don't hand it over at all. That line alone saved me more than I expected. So I added another rule. The empty envelope rule. When the envelope is empty, that category is done. No borrowing, no adjusting, no, I'll fix it later. Gran Betty always said, every pound has a job, or it'll find trouble. And that rule quietly closed so many leaks. By week 3, something surprising happened. It got easier. Not because temptation disappeared, but because I changed. Week 3 was control. I stopped scrolling just to scroll. I stopped buying just to feel something. And I started asking one simple question before anything left my hand. Would Gran Betty smile at this? If the answer was no, it stayed exactly where it was. Gran Betty always said, fast money goes faster. And I could finally see what she meant. Then came a moment I didn't expect. I was out with friends, everyone paying effortlessly. Tap, scan, done. And there I was, holding notes again. For a second I felt behind, like I was doing life the slow way, and I almost gave in. Just one tap, just to make it easier. But then I heard Gran Betty. Don't spend money to fit in. You'll pay for it twice. So I didn't, and that moment mattered more than I realized. Because week 4 changed everything. Week 4 was identity. This wasn't something I was trying to do anymore. It was just how I operated. Gran Betty always said, first you control the money, then the money stops controlling you. And for the first time I understood that. Now let me show you what this actually looked like in a normal day. Morning. I'd walk past the coffee shop. Before I wouldn't even think, tap and go. Now? I'd pause. Do I want this? Or am I just used to buying it? Some days I still bought it, but now it was a choice. Gran Betty always said, small choices build big outcomes. Afternoon. Food decisions. I'd check my envelope, see exactly what was left. No guessing, no hoping, just knowing. Evening. That used to be my weakest moment. Scrolling, bored, spending without thinking. But now, I'd open the envelope first, and most nights, that was enough to stop me. Gran Betty always said, watch the daily, not the yearly. Because it's the daily decisions that shape everything. Now, of course, I had to adapt. This is still 2026. I couldn't pay everything in cash. So I created the buffer envelope. Every digital bill, I set aside the exact amount in cash first. Then I transferred only that amount into a basic account. Nothing extra. Gran Betty always said, name every pound before it disappears, or it'll disappear without telling you. And that system quietly protected me from all the invisible leaks. Now I need to tell you this part properly, because this is where it really hit me. At the end of the 30 days, I sat back at that same table, same envelopes, same routine, and I counted everything. Once, twice, 3 times. Because I didn't believe it. 485 pounds and 20 pence. Saved. And it didn't feel like I had restricted myself. It felt like I had woken up. I even found a £5 note sitting quietly in one envelope, untouched. And I just laughed. Because I knew, before this, that would have disappeared without a trace. Gran Betty always said, money you can see is money you can keep. And Gran Betty was right. But the biggest change wasn't the money. It was how I felt. Before this, I'd check my account and feel uncertain. After this, I knew where every pound was before I spent it. Before, money felt fast and out of control. After, it felt calm, clear, intentional. Gran Betty always said, confusion spends money, clarity keeps it. And now I live by that. Because here's the truth I can't ignore. If I hadn't changed this, I know exactly where I'd be in a year. Same habits, same confusion, same quiet stress. Gran Betty warned me about that too. Small leaks sink big ships. So if any part of this feels familiar, try this. Not forever, just 7 days. Withdraw £100, split it into 3 envelopes, live from that. No taps, no scans, just you and your money, face to face. Gran Betty always said, 7 days is all it takes to see the truth. And she's right. Now, if this made you stop and think, even for a moment, hit like. It helps more people find this, and it tells me to keep sharing Gran Betty's wisdom. Share this with someone who always says, I don't know where my money goes. And if you want to take control of your money, instead of wondering where it went, subscribe. Because this is just the beginning. And if you're ready to go deeper right now, go and watch the rest of Gran Betty's Money Wisdom series. Gran Betty has a way of saying things that stay with you. Like this. You don't need more money, dear. You just need to stop letting it slip through your fingers. And maybe the one I finally understand now. If you can't feel it in your palm, you'll never keep it in your pocket. I used to think that sounded old-fashioned. Now I know. It's exactly what I needed to hear.